Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Freeman Focus. I'm your host, Mariano, where we slow things down and talk about real stories, real growth, and people making a difference right here in central Wisconsin. This season is proudly sponsored by What the Snark, your go to for custom business apparel, gifts, and merchandise. You can check them out on their online store at whatthesnark.com or visit their shop in Wild Rose, Wisconsin. In this episode, I sit down with Ed Klinger, the owner of the Moose and KRB's Klinger Real Barbecue. With three locations known for great food, great people, and an unmistakable hometown flavor. He shares his journey in the restaurant world, the grit that it takes to keep things running, and the smoke that built his barbecue brand. And what chapter could be next, stepping into plans to evolve, grow, and a hint of what's in store. All right, Ed Klinger, would you like to take it from here, introduce yourself?
Hey, how's it going, everybody? I'm Ed. I own the Moose Inn Supper Club. I've been there about the last 20, I think we're coming up on 28 years. And then we've started Klinger's Real Barbecue with this, so it's finishing our sixth summer already. So, yeah, I know. I'm like, I don't know where that time went, but it is what
Right.
it is.
Wow.
So,
And in that short time, you've already made some expansions too. That's pretty impressive.
yeah, at the Watoma location, we ended up with that building a little smaller. Our business didn't really know what to make of it. I won't get too much into that because I'm sure we'll touch on that in some point. But yeah, we added some really nice bathrooms, a storage area, stuff like that to that building, and then yeah, we ventured up to the Wapaka area. This is our third season. We're finishing up there.
Wow, like that happened so fast already.
Yeah, that went really fast, and that's really identical to this location as far as like our market goes. We're right near the chain of lakes in Wapaka. Here we're right near Silver Lake. We really are able to capitalize on that summer people going out having fun, hanging out by the lakes type of crowd. So yeah, and then yeah, so that location's done really really well for us also. So I know.
I'd imagine you guys get a very good diverse crowd that comes through there, especially people that are coming up for vacationing, like you mentioned. So that's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
awesome.
yeah, we get all walks of life. The barbecue thing's obviously very popular with families coming out. When you got large groups, it's such an easy food to come out and eat. Push some tables together or go to a picnic table and, order a couple, two meat, two sides and share the meal, that type of stuff. So yeah, it's really family friendly atmosphere. Actually, all the way down to your pets. We're very dog friendly at those locations. So our picnic areas are
That's
always filled
awesome.
up. I mean, yeah, during the summer months, I mean, it's cool. I'm a pet owner, so I just love seeing people come out with their dogs. Because truthfully, the way my world works, I mean, my dog's part of my family. So, yeah, and that's the same thing. I love seeing my customers come out and taking the time with the whole family, including the pet, the four-legged friend, and just hanging out, enjoying some, time together and stuff like that. Wonderful. Yeah. So I had in this area, I was in my, let's just say probably mid to late 20s, and I had some vacation property in the area. Loved the area so much. Didn't really like the job I was doing, but I was vested into that job. I worked there for 10 years full time, was making great money, had a company car, whole nine yards, but I just wasn't real happy. And I thought, well, you know what? Maybe I can try something else. And if I fail, I'm young enough to still go do something else after that. So, long story short, I tried to buy the Pioneer Pub in Wild Rose. So,
Okay.
myself and I had a partner at that time. We tried to buy that, and this was going back to 1998, 99, somewhere in there. And that deal, honestly, just kind of fell apart at the last minute. We thought we were going to end up with it, fell apart. And then Mike Egan was a very active realtor in the area. It was Egan Realty at that time. Mike knew that Roy and Val over here at the Moose Inn wanted to sell, basically retire. So he made the connection, honestly. So it was Mike doing some networking and brought us all together. Dave Woyak was my realtor at that time. And Dave did all the little work behind the scenes, got us all together. Tom Cabasta did the closing, who's another local, a guy that I see almost on a daily basis. Didn't know Tom at that time, but he did the closing at his office, and the rest is kind of history. We started with a business that was kind of your classic Wisconsin supper club, very small a menu, but a lot of different options, kind of your classic options, roasted chicken, bunch of different cuts of steak, things like that. Classic Friday night fish fry. They were open about 180 days a year, so about half the year. And from there, looked different for us. We wanted to kind of take it to a 7 day a week operation. We did that, started dabbling into the catering business a little bit. From there, I'd say probably 2006 or 7 is probably when my partner that I had at the time, he basically went on his merry way. So then it kind of all fell in my lap. So, and, it was a little bit of a transition time for us. But the one thing I always saw really good possibility at was, expanding our catering operation. That was really, we got really aggressive. And, I just saw a market for that, especially in this area, because there wasn't really anybody doing it. And if they were, it was just kind of little operations. And we presented ourselves in a professional manner, I always thought, and, built a lot of relationships with people, Gulf leagues, people who are getting married. Cause by now I've been in the restaurant business in this area for, let's just say, 5 to 8 years. So it's a good customer base, things like that.
Absolutely.
And, we were able to really build up that catering operation. And then, then from there, I was able to just start putting full-time people in place, kind of one at a time. And most of them had worked for me in a part-time status. Most of them started as a dishwasher.
I was a dishwasher at once. I started as a dishwasher at the Alaskan Supper Club in Red Granite.
In
So
Red Granite, yeah. So I mean, great. I've had Tetzloff's had that back in the day. Boy, I used to love going into that place, and then it was bought and sold a couple times, and now unfortunately it's not there anymore. But yeah, that was always a another great spot, especially Friday night fish fries was always a popular spot down there. So yeah, but we've always done that and we still do that is we kind of really like to hire from within. So, a lot of times I'll just use Matt and Brad that work for me right now over at the Moose. Matt basically runs everything behind the scenes. Brad is your front of the house guy, scheduler, stuff like that. Uh, those two guys started with me as dishwashers when they were basically 14 years old. Now they're 32 years old, and they will be the next owners of the Moose Inn. That's just how it lined up. I got lucky, where I got two guys that really just fell in love with the business, and they treat it like their own. It's amazing. I can't say enough about them, but it's really all of my employees. They're all really, really good. So, I've got probably now I'm thinking I've probably got about 8 full-time people between all the restaurants that work for me, and they've all kind of been around me a long time, put it that way.
that's awesome. So they're family without blood, more or less. That's awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. We refer to it, especially over at the Moose, we always refer to it as the Moose family. So,
The Moose
um,
family.
yeah, the Moose family. We've just always done that. It's just been I just can't say enough about the staff. Between all the places, we've got about 80 employees now, between part-time and full-time. And it's really it's a cool group. I'll especially, comment the kids. We get a lot of kids that it's their first job when they come to us working in the restaurant business, right? I mean, it's 14 years old, they want to put a little money in their pocket. Mom and dad want them to learn a little work ethic. And, it works. It's cool to see, I think kids always get a bad rap. I mean, it's like when I was young, I remember adults complaining like, oh boy, the kids nowadays,
Them young
and,
punks.
and I'm sure you went through the same thing, but I'm like, I think every generation goes through that. You just got to go find the workers. And we've got, I mean, yeah, do we have some people that come to us and they don't make it? Yeah, of course, every business does. But I think that's just a natural thing because not everybody's cut out for like restaurant work. I mean, sometimes, like, you've done
You gotta have
dishes.
the bustle and the discipline and have a smile on your face at all times. That's not easy
Yeah,
for everybody.
it's not easy for everybody. And I mean, and I'm not saying it's, that doesn't make you a bad person. It's just like, okay, maybe you're not cut out for restaurant work. So,
Right.
um, and we just, the kids though that come to us, I mean, we get a lot out of these. They're 14 years old. I tell mom and dad, we're just gonna teach them a few things. Make sure they gotta, they're gonna have to ask you, make sure they got clean clothes when they come to work.
Hospitality.
That, they got to be on time. They got to communicate schedule. If they're in any sports, they got to talk to us. Navigate those things. And when they're 14 years old, they can't work real late at night. I mean, it's basically 7 o'clock at night and it's only a couple hours a day, but they at least get those building blocks to kind of to take the
Absolutely.
next step, right? So when they're 16 and they want a car and they get a car and they're working and they're doing sports, they kind of know how to navigate all that a little bit. By the time they're 18, going on to school or work full time, um, I think it helps them to have a better basis and you know, handle on life when they are on their own. Because I remember when my kid went off to college, I was like, that was the time I was so used to being, I mean, somewhat involved. I wasn't a helicopter parent, but I'm like, I always knew what was going on. And all of a sudden it's like go to college. It's like they just disconnect that plug and they want to get paid and they want you out of the
right?
picture.
That's awesome. Interesting enough, I believe because my son works over at Culver's full
Yeah.
time, and I
Yep.
believe I think Dylan said that he picked up a part time job working for you over at KRB's. I'm not sure
Dylan,
if he's going to be doing dishes or Dylan Williams is his last name.
I'm just trying to think. So it's Watoma or Wapaka?
I believe it'd be the Watoma location,
Watoma. Okay. I'm going to check well, he might be networking through one of I've got a couple really good 18 to 19-year-old kids over there that like,
and those are his
they're
buddies.
always, yeah, right. They're always pimping them, and they're always like, I mean, they just bring that natural thing for me. So yeah, your son might be in the mix already. Maybe had an interview. I just haven't met the kid
I've
yet.
gotten a lot of great feedback from people at Culver's. They're like, "Oh, your boy works over there. He's so well mannered. Takes a really good job of taking my order." I'm like,
Yeah,
he might have a knack for that. Like
yeah,
he's just
yeah. And I'll tell you what, Culver's is. So I've met Craig Culver a couple times. I know Mark that owns the Watoma Culver's here. I know that family really, really well. Have for years, even before Mark was into Culver's. So I've gotten to meet Craig Culver a couple times, and then he actually spoke at a convention I was at about 3 weeks ago, and it was cool for him. Kind of the same thing. He told his story, and it's amazing how almost identical the framework is of his story, and like probably anybody in that's self-employed, the startup, the agony, the grit, the failures, the pick yourself back up, get back after it again, blah blah blah. But what I loved about him is just how his please and thank you, welcome to Culver's, right? That comes from Craig, and that is still instilled. And when I met him, they just opened their 1000, it was 1036 restaurant. So
wow.
yeah, and but you go in every one, they're almost all identical as far as that greeting goes, and that stops from
S-
the top. That starts at the
Phenomenal
top.
service. You know what to expect.
Yeah, you know what to expect. And it's just amazing how I I just happened to see Craig here. They had a fundraiser here a few months ago in Watoma, and Craig was there, and I was talking to him, and I remember seeing this little old lady coming, and like she wasn't struggling, but Craig like stopped our conversation and ran right over to help her hold the door, get her in the restaurant. I'm like, okay, that guy, that's just in his genes. He's just naturally doing that all the time. So, but what a great example of hospitality.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Phenomenal example.
yeah,
Yeah, I
yeah,
think everyone has like that mindset of like when you look at a business structure and someone doing it right, Culver's has that down. They really
yeah.
have that down.
They
Everyone
really
knows exactly what to say and they know how to treat their guests every single time they walk in the door.
every single time it's amazing, and that's another place where they do really really well with the young people. And they actually at the conference I was at, and he spoke. He talked about recognizing that in young people and maximizing that, because just like I feel like, a lot of times kids don't know what they're going to do after high school. I think we're probably in a little better spot nowadays where high schools are trying to get these kids out. Either you're going to go to work or on to, continuing college, but there still are kids that just don't know what they want to do, right? Or they
Right.
haven't had to make that decision. And I tell
They
them,
need
don't
the
hurt.
influence.
Yeah, don't hurry. But if you give them an opportunity, I know I've got some, where it's like they've come through, just working with us, and it's like, okay, what are you gonna do at now at graduation time? Oh, I don't really know. And I'm like, well, take your summer and you figure it out. But now after summer, you have that conversation with them and go, what are you thinking about? Oh, I still don't really know. And I'm like, well, how about we start making some money and give you a little more responsibility and see where that takes you. And then
Right.
and I know Culver's does that and recognizes that because they like to promote from within. So I just think a really, again, really, really good business model to follow, especially in my line of work. So yeah, but to get back to your original question, yeah, Moose Inn, we started that, been here now for many, many years. We've we've had great days. We've had many more great days than bad days, but the restaurant business, it's up and down. You I've learned here a lot about everything that I know nowadays. So, from way you handle people, uh, to worrying about business, right? You get into January, things get slow. It's like, okay, it's always slow in
Right.
January. You've been through this 20 some times. Let's not get so excited about it, right? And you
Right.
just kind of weather the storm. That's the biggest thing in
The
it.
snow will
So,
fly. It'll go.
yeah, yeah,
People come
yeah.
back.
And I always say, and just, be, keep doing what you're doing. I mean, it's the biggest thing. I mean, don't try to make any drastic changes. I mean, one thing I see in my line of work, it's like people get worried and then they change their hours. Oh, we're slow with, so we're going to do winter hours and summer hours, and everybody can do whatever they want, especially if they own their own place. But, I've always just stuck with it. It's like, okay, we're just going to be open 7 days a week over at the Moose. And, you know, we're
Consistency
just going to,
matters. It
yeah, we're just
shows.
going to be there. We're going to be there every day. And that's just the way it's going to be because, yeah, are there some days where I could go, yeah, middle of winter, could I close on Tuesday nights, for example? Well, probably, but you start doing that and then you want to reopen on Tuesdays and people, are they open or aren't they open? So
Right.
just kind of weather the storm. But, we've also built a business where, we've got so much catering going on. My crew in the kitchen's always busy doing something. It works out for me, but it doesn't work out for everybody. So we've just built a business that's able to be open 7 days a week, because we got a lot of stuff going on and we got a lot of stuff that goes out our back door, which has been fantastic for us. The catering operation, can't say enough about it. So
That actually leads me into another question that I had for you was as far as the catering and COVID, and I think you were opening KRBs around that time too. So like you really got a double whammy there.
yeah, yeah.
Did you have to adapt or overcome from that? Like how did that work
So
out?
so remember I said, there's a lot of good days of business, but there's some bad days. So I'll go back to like right after Christmas and New Year's of that year. We got shut down. Basically, it was St. Patrick's Day, 2020. So, but I remember after New Year's, right? We all started hearing a little bit of talk in towards mid to end of January about this word COVID, right? And so people, I noticed, and I noticed it right away on weekends. I'm like, okay, our numbers are off, right? We're down a little bit on weekends. And then it started to consistently happen. I'm like, people were actually starting to be on their own a little more cautious, right? So, um, and then it came, we got shut down on St. Patrick's Day, which was an unfortunate thing because here we are, one of our biggest days of the year.
Right?
I remember we've got 350 pounds of corned beef, hot, ready to rock and roll. And we already went through lunch service and I got dinner reservations. And I think it was 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Basically, our governor comes out and says, we're doing the shutdown following kind of what a lot of other states did. At the time, I was like, well, this kind of sucks. so, we honored all of our reservations that night, got everybody through. And then the next day, I remember going to bed and then waking up the next day, not really knowing, like, okay, now what? Right? I'm
Right.
like, and I forgot what day of the week this happened, and I'm like, well, now what? We're closed. So I think that next day went by, and then literally the next day, I was like, okay, here's our plan. We basically told the entire staff to stay home. So I remember it was just a handful of us. My son who was here because college got shut down somewhere prior to that. So my son Spencer's here, I'm here, Matt and Brad are here. And that was basically about it. Just a handful of us, maybe one or two other people, and wait staff at home. Anybody else in the mix is basically home. And I'm like, well, we're gonna start doing lunches and let's try doing some takeout stuff. So, and at this point, this is the infancy of COVID. I mean, we don't know the future of anything. So I'm like, well, let's start cleaning out the cooler and freezer and start, okay, we're going to sell chicken dinners today. And right. And then all of a sudden it's like this thing after about a week or so really started to take off. And then we really started to build up this lunchtime business because what I found out was like, okay, yeah, we're closed, but there's nobody going to work. Or if they are going to work, they're working from home. So everybody, all those little things we took for granted, running errands, doing all this kind of stuff. Nobody's doing
Right.
anything like that anymore. So if they have an opportunity to come out and come get a lunch or an early dinner, they're doing that. We actually turned it into a lot of fun. I mean, we were doing Facebook Live videos, and some of my staff dressing up like a chicken, and I had some of my
Seen
old
that.
friends. Yeah, like Mike Cleforth, who used to be a part of this community, a football coach. I revisit. He was in town, so I had him revisit, and we did a little talking and gave him a chicken dinner and sent them out down the road. So we did a lot of creative stuff just to get people laughing. We did a reggae routine, with some jerk chicken, and we had a lot of fun with it. And we built up a great business. I mean, for lunch, we were serving 150 to 200 people at lunchtime, which was fantastic. And then,
That's
Fridays we were,
impressive. That's impressive.
yeah, 400 fish fries. And I'm like, and then we're trying to navigate this whole social distancing thing. And we were doing old fashions in brown bags. So you come in, we give you, a little cup of ice. We found a soda that actually had bitters in it. So we give them a little can of soda. We give them a couple little bottles of brandy or whiskey, whatever they wanted, and a couple cherries. And they had an old fashioned kit to take home. So
That's
we
so
got
awesome.
yeah, we got inventive, and then so the Moose was rolling around, doing great. We were supposed to open KRBs that April, so April came, and I'm like, well, now what, right? I mean, we're supposed to open.
Right.
I had this big, you know, grand opening plan with like 50 friends, and all that stuff is canceled. Now I'm like, okay, now what are we gonna do? So we slowed that down a little bit, and we had a good thing going at the Moose, and then back when I fast forward to May, things were humming along at the Moose. I was able to go back over to KRB's, start thinking about, okay, what are we going to do here? And then there was rumors we were going to be able to open, and they basically allowed us to reopen, open up dining. People could come in and
Thank
that
you,
kind of
Jesus,
stuff.
right? Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it was great, but I had such a good thing going at the Moose. I'm like, how is it going to be when we reopen? Because right now we're making it. And I mean, we're not doing great, but last thing I want to do is kind of go back to like those days in January before COVID where it was like things got so slow because the
Right.
public didn't naturally go out. So I'm like, we had a good thing going now. Why wreck it? So, but needless to say, so go over to KRB's now. We opened the 20th of May 2020, and I think that was about a week after everything reopened again. And
Yeah, I
we
want
got
to
it
say it was
together.
right around that time.
Yeah, and we opened, and right out of the gates, first day, like everything, my projections, everything, like we sold out of everything. I mean,
It exceeded your
all the
expectations.
yeah, all the meats, all the stuff, and I'm like, okay, I underestimated. Well, day two comes, long night. We're prepping every single thing in the restaurant, like baked beans and mac and cheese
Can
and
never get
uh,
prepped enough.
all
Still
these
run out.
meats, and I'm like, day two comes, same thing happens, and day three, and then us and we go, okay, so now we're we're like, okay, we're closed a couple days. Let's reanalyze this. We get going the next week, heavier prep, more, and it's busy, it's busy, it's busy. And then I came to find out, I'm like, okay, KRB's was perfect for COVID because of the fact of all the outdoor dining, social distancing, all those things we needed to be. Well, we had all this great outdoor space. So people were coming out there like, we can come in, we can order food, we can go to a picnic table, we can walk up to the bar, we can get a drink, go back to our picnic table. This is awesome, right? So people felt very comfortable with us. And right there, it was like we were slammed and we had a phenomenal first year. It was unbelievable. And our plan was to just be open like kind of as a seasonal business, but we got a late start. I think with that year we closed like towards the end of September. We're like, holy cow, this was awesome. And I attribute a lot of that was interest, of course, with our product, but a lot of it had to do with COVID. I think it was just perfect timing. We hit a home run in that department. It was just like people wanted to be out, they wanted to do stuff, and we had the perfect atmosphere for them to do that in. So
Indoor and outdoor. So it just worked out
yeah,
really well.
it worked out really, really well. So that first year came and went. Year two, things started to get a little more lax, 2021, but it was still not a perfect world. As far as like restaurant world goes, KRB's was though. I mean, exceeding expectations. I mean, we start serving, you know, hundreds of people every day. And I'm like, well, this is amazing. But again, people felt very comfortable by us. And then, 2022 was really our first real year of business, I'll say, where it's like, okay, we're going to open beginning of April and end of March, beginning of April, and we're going to run this thing till basically through hunting season, that which was our original plan. Um, and that gave us a real sampling of like, okay, what to expect in business, stuff like that. Yeah, and then since then, 2023, I found the building up in Wapaka, which coincidentally it was built probably around 30 years ago. And I remember driving by that building and I'm like, oh my gosh, look at that place. They're building it as like a deli slash catering business. And I'm like, oh, that's cool because I'm getting into the catering business. I'm like, what a neat area. Well, that building always caught my eye. And then I had just kind of kept my eye on it. It became a coffee shop, and it was a coffee shop for about 15 years, a little bit of bakery, that kind of stuff. And but not a huge business of any means. And I remember a guy that owns one of the radio stations in Wapaka was down here one day talking to me, and he goes, Ed, we got to get you up to Wapaka. And I'm like, you know what? I said, I love that market. I said, I really like Wapaka. I've always loved Wapaka. I love King. It's just a cool place to go. I said, living here, it's cool. It's a great place to go. You start your day up there, work your way back to Watoma. It's, you just get out of town. It's cool. And it's not that far away. And so this radio station guy's talking to me and he goes, we got to get you up there. He goes, I know a place. And he rattles off the name of some place. He goes, she serves coffee, but she wants to get out of the business. She hasn't had any luck trying to sell her place, blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I remembered the name, what he told me. So a couple days go by, and then I Google the name of this place, and it came up, and I'm like, holy balls. I'm like, that's the building that I've been looking at for years. Like, it would be a cool place. And I was like, huh. So I
That's
go up there
faith
one
right
day.
there.
Yeah, right there. I'm like, okay, I always say everything happens for a reason, right? So I
100%.
go and I cruise up there. I go in the coffee shop, get a coffee, look around what's going on, come back, wait a couple days, and I'm like, I'm just gonna call this lady, right? And her name was Mitzi. And she's super awesome lady. And I'll never forget, I called her right before Christmas that year, and I'm like, hey, I said, you don't know me. I said, my name's Ed. I own a couple restaurants in Watoma. I said, have you ever thought about possibly selling your property? She goes, what? She goes, you're who? And I said, well, I explained it all again. She goes, yeah, I want out of here. She goes, call me after the first of the year. So
That is
and
awesome.
I think that was the fall of 2022, fall going into winter. And then, so 23, we wrote the offer right at the beginning of the year. We took ownership by April, took a little time to remodel it. And then, yeah, we just basically opened up and, yeah, that place has been great. So, it's as busy as this place here, just in a different way. It's just, like during the summer, we have really good lunches here. His lunches are better during the fall. Kind of business flip flops. His nighttime business is better. When ours is slower.
Population difference too makes a difference there.
Population difference. What that Wapaka area's got about almost 8,000 people, but where we're located is the town of King. It is a very heavy tourist area, and it gets quiet, just like Wild Rose, Watoma, any of these smaller
Right.
areas this time of year, it just gets quiet. But they do have, Wapaka's right next door, so people do come over. More industry, more businesses, things like that. So yeah, we got a good thing going up there. So yeah.
One of the things that I wanted to touch base on was that first smoker that you got out there that was custom made for you by a mutual friend of ours, John Winiger,
Oh yeah.
the
So
Big John. You want to talk about that smoker a little bit and just touch
yeah,
base on that? That's pretty cool.
yeah. So John and I'm not gonna say we're childhood friends, but we've been friends pretty much from, I'll say, very early 20s on, right? And John came to this town right about the same time as me. Um, I met John basically because you know, I bought my first new car about a year ago. So I always drove old junk, right?
Congrats.
So, and John's really good at fixing old junk. So, and let's just say I got a lot of old stuff. So you got a really good relationship with the mechanic.
Right.
So John is always working on my stuff. So We've developed a relationship. We're very good friends. We have a good time together, go on vacation together, all that kind of stuff. So, we're talking. I'm talking to him about barbecue, and the rumor I'm going to open this place in Watoma and all this kind of stuff.
Just a rumor at the time.
It was a rumor because there was getting that building here took a little bit of navigating, but we finally that was a process, but it finally happened, and we were able to open. And then COVID, and we were able to open. So, but John was part of this process because I was talking to him, like how we're going to cook meat and the process that I like to use, and he goes, "Nope, nope, 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 Eddie, I got an idea." And he goes to Vegas like the next week, and he sends me a picture of this semi that is indoors at some bar or tavern or country bar he's in. I'm like, okay, now where are we going with this? And then he comes back, and then he sends me some pictures of something he had basically for a long time, which was a 19 1970 Kenworth semi tractor. And then his idea was we are going to fabricate our own basically tank for the back of it that will cook our barbecue in. So, I knew the process, I know how to barbecue. So I knew what things had to be, but I was like, well, this seems like a lot of work. But John was all about it. And he basically needed a project, especially leading up to COVID.
Needed something to do to keep busy.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did that out at his house. And, this was just, literally a bar napkin, sketching out stuff, how reverse flow smoke has to
How
work with an
awesome is
offset
that?
smoker, right? And then him just, John's an amazing fabricator. So,
Oh yeah.
it's me, some sketches, taking some pictures of stuff, pulling some things off the internet, visiting with him. And then he sources this tank from Lannon Tank. So it's in a town of Lannon, Wisconsin, which coincidentally, my mom spent time in, my grandparents live there. So, southern Wisconsin. So to get
Hey,
another, you cross over all these lines. And so John picks up this raw steel tank, 7,000-gallon tank, right? And we basically put a firebox in the back of it. It's got 3 chambers, 6 different racks in it. And we can cook about 45 briskets at one time in the thing.
wow.
So, uh, yeah. So and the way it works, you just think, okay, what are the odds? You kind of draw this thing up, and then you start your first fire in it, and you're watching the temperature gauges, and it's like, was this thing, in the barbecue world, you want to be right, depending on the smoker, right around two. We'll just say 225 is kind of the perfect smoking barbecue temperature. Well, we fire the fire up, get this thing going, and you're like, well, is it going to be too hot? Is it not going to get hot enough? Blah blah blah. The needle goes right to 225 degrees.
No kidding.
It's like,
Wow.
and this has worked amazing, right? I mean, in the barbecue world, you typically cook your briskets 12 to 15 hours. That's what we cook our briskets. These smokers work. It's unbelievable how well they work. Uh, and it's just, we had a little bit of an idea, but not that good of an idea. But, you put a couple, I guess, brains together, and we made it happen. But yeah, I can't say enough about John. So he built this thing, tricked it out, with all the little
Lights
things
and
on
stuff.
it,
It looks cool. It looks
lights, mud flaps, all this kind of cool stuff, and then, we had the opportunity to build another one for up in Wapaka. That's our 66 Freightliner. It's a cab over, so a little different style old semi. But the old semis, I mean, these things show up everywhere on the internet where guys are, I mean, it's really a world of guys that drove these old trucks, are fans of these old trucks, and they basically they take pictures, get them on websites. We end up, our pictures, the one in Watoma, end up on the Kenworth website every once in a while.
that's
Their favorite
awesome.
stuff where people are like, hey, I came through this town and saw this, and yeah, it's really they're fan favorites. People are out there every weekend getting their pictures taken with them. Motorcycle guys love them. Park all the bikes out front, get pictures with them. So yeah, it's really been it was at first I didn't know about it, but it really turned out to be a great marketing tool for us. People always come out there talking to us about how we do what we do. So it really is a piece where we can, you know, people are very inquisitive about them, and we love sharing the information with people. So it works out really, really neat.
Kind of leads us into my next question about doing barbecue the right way. Now I can
Yeah.
imagine with, KRBs being your one of your names for your company, like, that's a big statement saying that you got real barbecue there. And so, why don't you touch base on that a little bit?
So I was coming up with a thing because I'm always a fan of you've got your formal name for a place, and then I'm a huge fan of like, okay, what's the short name of the place, right? What's the nickname of the place? So, and I had time to think about this, and I'm like, well, so I'll start with the word real. And I think a barbecue, it's like a brotherhood. It's a family based thing. I love trying other barbecue. The biggest thing with me, I tell everybody, I will never claim to be the best barbecue guy. I don't want the awards. I don't want the accolades. I don't want any of that stuff. But I'm going to tell you, if you wake up in the morning and it's like, boy, I could really go for a brisket sandwich or, a hunk of jalapeno cheddar sausage. Well, if you wake up in the morning, you got the taste for that, just come over by me because you know what? We do put out some good barbecue. I will never, ever, ever claim to be the best at my craft, but we put out some good barbecue. So, barbecue is one of those things. I know there's a lot of backyard guys that create some really good stuff, but that process, to eat on Saturday, you got to be thinking about it on Wednesday. Source your meat, get it seasoned or brined, whatever you do with it. The smoking process, it's a long week of getting prepared where you could just walk in by us and we'll carve you up something really good. So, and the real part of it is I like to do things the real way, the right way. I like making things from scratch. That's been my background here at the Moose forever. Our catering operation, I was lucky enough to have that, not knowing it taught me how to deal with mass quantities of food, right? You start doing
Right.
weddings for 400 people. It's like, how do you take care of the food? How do you feed 400 people within an hour? Because you can't cook it to order. It's got to be ready to go and serve it. It's got to be a quality meal. We've all been to that wedding or party, where it's like, okay. But it's like, so you really got to learn how to take care of food. And that gave me an advantage going into KRBs because now it's like, okay, we are serving a lot of people. We're cooking a lot of briskets, cooking a lot of pork butts, ribs, things like that. Setting up processes that work that are safe, right? Because you want to hold food at a proper temperature. Otherwise, it's not safe for the public. So,
Right.
you really got to learn all that stuff. And the catering operation taught me that. So, doing things the real way, the right way, making our baked beans from scratch, applesauce, our potato salad. Potato salad, I love telling the story. You know, if everybody remembers the farm market here in Watoma, right? I was always a big fan of Holly and Janice over there and how they did stuff. It was kind of always authentic, homemade, like you were eating in your own kitchen type of thing. So their potato salad I always loved, and it was just simple ingredients. So, they closed and I asked, hey guys, I'm like, I get that recipe from you. They go, Ed, it's super easy. It's potatoes, right? It's green onions, it's salt and pepper, it's hard boiled eggs, and it's mayo and good mayo, Hellman's mayo. I'm like, okay, that makes a difference. But it's simple. But you got to
Yeah.
take that time. You got to set up that process to do that because, potato salad, let's say we're open 5 days a week. We make potato salad probably at least 4 days a week. Busy summertime, we're making it 5 days a week. So we really try to start every day with the fresh batch of potato salad, for example. Our baked beans we make from scratch, macaroni and cheese. There's 5 different dairy products that we put
So
into
good.
that. Yeah. So, um, the all those things, making it from scratch, seasoning our meat. Our briskets we like to season 2 days ahead of time just to give the salt and pepper a little more time to bind to the meat. Where baby back ribs, we basically want to do the day before, so they're literally probably about 18 hours with seasoning on them because we don't want them to be over salty, overpowered by our pretty aggressive seasoning. So, and then it comes down to how you cook the food. I love the barbecue world, right? And there's so many different ways you can do barbecue. I mean, I grew up with a Weber grill, watching my grandpa
Same.
come back, right? Coming back from Canada, my grandpa come back from Canada, and he'd have salmon, right, that he fished in Canada from wherever, and then he would smoke them on a Weber grill. And just at 5 years old, me learning like, okay, you put the heat on one side, a pan of water on this side, and you put your salmon fillet over here, and then it's an indirect heat that's going across that fish. And learning that, and fire has always intrigued me. I love cooking on open flames. Super cool.
Absolutely.
I mean, I love it. And I'm gonna say, there's a place in the world for gas grills, all the pellet fed stuff, right? It's created this, everybody's aware of barbecue nowadays. So that's all got its place in it. I just like to kind of do it the old way. I mean, and it's a pain in the butt, but we got systems in place to do it. I build a fire on Tuesday. We don't open till Wednesdays, but I'm building a fire at 4:30 in the morning on Tuesday to start my process of cooking briskets. Would it be easy to shove them in a smoker and turn on a thing and let some pellets do
Walk
my work?
away.
Yeah,
Yeah.
walk away.
Get a
Yeah, but
notification on your phone that it's almost done.
yeah,
Ding.
yeah.
That's not
So
real barbecue.
and that's where I go with it. And I love the world of barbecue, so I love everything that the Traegers, the Green Mountain, the Green Egg, all this stuff was brought to us because there's a cool awareness about barbecue now, right? And everybody's
Right.
doing it, and it's wonderful. I just myself, I like the old pain in the butt way, right? It's just finding your wood. You got to have dry wood. It's got to be aged the perfect amount of time to get the right amount of smoke. And I like that stuff. That's just my hobby. It's not for everybody because then nobody would barbecue. I get that, but that's just how we like to do it. And I'm all about the process. I always equate this to over at the Moose Inn, right? You come into the Moose Inn if we're running something on special and it's got hollandaise sauce on it, right? Hollandaise sauce is an old French style of sauce with basically egg yolks. Well, nowadays we all know you can walk in a store and you can get a little packet of, something that you whip up with some water or milk and butter and you create yourself some hollandaise sauce. I like the process, taking the eggs and the lemon juice and the butter and whipping it together and keeping it at the right heat. And I just think it still tastes better, but I get where all this pre-done stuff has got its place, but I'm a big fan of the process of how we do stuff. Could we buy potato salad and coleslaw in 5-gallon tubs? And yeah, there's a lot of really good products out there, but I just like the process of how you get from point A to point B and a little bit of knowing where your food comes from. So, I'll go into the next thing here. We love doing business locally as much as we can. So, you know, I try to buy as much produce as I can during the year from my friends Adam and Carrie over at Flight's Family Farms. You mentioned the baby red potatoes, I think, earlier
I
when we
love
were
those.
talking, right? Right. So those baby red potatoes.
Love them baby reds.
Yeah. So, this time of year, we're using about 600 pounds of baby reds a week between just the
Wow.
baby reds and the potato salad. But, during the summertime, I mean, that number is 12, 13, 1,400 pounds of baby red potatoes that we use every week. Those are coming from right down the road here. And,
Local.
it's cool to tell people that. And it's a story I love telling. And every time somebody tells me that, I'm like, no, seriously, they're grown right down the road and you're eating them here. But people come up from Chicago and Milwaukee and stuff like that don't really know us in our community. I love telling those stories. I love telling, hey, our beer on tap, Dave Knuth. We've got two different flavors of Dave's beer. Dave now
Blue
lives
Eyed
in
Blonde,
yeah, Blue Eyed Blonde. He's got his own
number one.
restaurant, successful thing going. But, Dave graduated from Watoma High School, and I've known Dave since he came out of high school, and he was kind of brewing beer on the side. And then,
I knew he looked very familiar. I'm like, that guy looks so familiar. I'm like, and then he's friends with a lot of people that I know from Watoma as well. So I had a feeling.
yeah. And Dave is just another one of those local stories I can't say enough about. And if you could ever get down to his brewery in Ripon, I mean, phenomenal food and just a good time. And he's another guy. He likes the process of how you do stuff. It's
Speaking of processes, I
yeah,
wanted to ask you about processed meat. Now, Stone Ridge is closing, right? They're done. So
they're
how does
done.
that impact your business and anything there?
So so Stone Ridge, I think I know where you're going with this. We're basically, we I love doing stuff locally. So Dwayne, I've been friends with Dwayne for years, started our relationship started with him when, where Ace Hardware is now. That was the original Stone Ridge in this community. We just had through their unfortunate time of the fire and then getting into this new building, him and I have always, I'll just say, we've done a lot of business together and I think we've got a great friendship together. We bounce ideas off from each other all the time. So, um, I really loved supporting these guys. I mean, I was proud to say, hey, we've got Stone Ridge products in our places, over at the Moose. Basically, we buy any of the steaks you eat over there are all coming through Stone Ridge. Over at KRB's, all of our, our briskets, our pork butts, our ribs, that all basically comes through Stone Ridge.
Mm, I'm getting
So we
hungry.
buy we buy a lot of stuff from them, and it's a cool thing. I was like, years ago, I used to buy meat. I'd buy one case at a time from be Cisco or U.S. Foods or Reinhardt, and now I buy pallets of meat at a time that come on a semi from Dwayne over at Stonehenge locally. So it's really cool because I'm like, well, I know what we buy here. I write a check to them, and they got employees in this area, stuff like that. So I do, I'm not saying we're sourcing our meat locally. We're buying from somebody local, and I think that is huge. So yes, but they're closed now, and that was a unfortunate thing for our community. I in just in general because I think, everybody's got that friend that comes up here from somewhere else and goes, oh, before I go home, I got to run over to Stoner's and get my bacon or my sausage or my cheese. We all have somebody that comes to town and does that same exact thing. I've been buying through their wholesale department. That's basically how we've done business for years now, is through the wholesale department. So nothing on my end really changes. We still buy all of their products. I work with Dwayne on a weekly basis. Ed, what do you need? This is what we got coming in, like briskets. We're basically getting a pallet full of brisket every week from them that comes into our facility, which is basically
Mm,
equate 30, that's about 32 cases usually by weight. You're talking around 2,000 pounds of brisket is what we use on a weekly
that's a
basis
lot of
during the
meat.
summer. A lot of meat. So now we're obviously scaling back. Summer's over. We're winding down our work week, stuff like that. So I talked to Dwayne quite a bit because we got to keep stuff in the pipeline with the supply chain coming in and then cutting that back, obviously, this time of year. So that's all been great. Their store closing. Obviously, I knew about that coming for a while, and it's like, it's just part of me. It's like I don't do a lot of grocery shopping, but I'm in and out of the grocery stores, and my staff was in and out of Stone Ridge every single day because we always need odds and ends, right? It's like, well, that we always loved the community minded stuff, and that gave us that. So Dwayne and I were talking, and we were like, that this whole idea of Stoners having a wholesale place, where people could just come in and get like cheese, sausage, stuff like that. And it's really not where they're going to put their energy now because, they're getting into manufacturing, and what they've got going on is amazing, creating jobs. It's just, they're switching gears is what it comes. They're doing what's going to work for them. And they had 20 good years of business in this community. So, but Dwayne and I talked back and forth about that and just, and then, they're like, well, somebody should open something, and we went back and forth about ideas. And then one day he just, he called me one night and he goes, hey, remember what we're talking about? And I go, yeah. He goes, I think you should do it. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. I'm like, no, I got too much going on. He goes, no, no, no. He goes, think about it. So I think about it for a couple days, right? And I knew he'd be asking me again. And I was like, you know what? I've got great young people that work for me. I've got a lot of, in doing this, I finally said, I was like, you know what? We are going to do this. So yes, officially, the rumors are out there. And I tell her, if everybody asks me, but you asked, yes, we are going to open a meat market. It'll be located
That's
by,
awesome.
yeah, it'll be located right by Klinger's Real Barbecue. I've been working with zoning. We got to make a couple things happen as far as that kind of stuff goes, logistics on the back end, which takes time. We're in the planning process. I've actually got a plan back from a designer of what our building's going to look like. Next step later this week, I'll be getting that off to an architect to actually draw some hard lines on, make this thing functional. And our goal basically will be to, we'll open probably, I'm guessing it'll be the spring of 2027 is when it'll be, because by the time we get our ducks in a row, we'll probably break ground, I'm guessing, around June. Um, Getting this all going, opening a meat market slash small grocery store is not going to be easy. There's a lot of logistics to it, but it's going to fit right in. We're doing a lot of stuff already. Like, you think about a deli department, right? Between our restaurants, we already create a lot of items you would find in a deli department when you go up there. So, baked beans, coleslaw, that kind of stuff. We already create a lot of those things. So that'll go in there. We'll have a fresh meat counter, right? So you can come in, get your ribeyes, your porterhouses, things like that. We'll grind fresh burger. We'll have a small seafood counter. During the summer, how great would it be to walk into a place and buy a side of salmon that you can throw on your Weber and cook up for your family and friends, right? So, and it works really good for us because we're already buying a lot of meat, turning a lot of things through our restaurants. So this will just be another piece that just fits in to keep things moving, is what it does. So,
That's
along with all
awesome.
the cheese, sausage, bacon, all the things that people are missing right now will be back in this community, which will be wonderful. I mean, I'm so excited about it. I've been dumping a lot of energy into it. And we're super happy. We think we got a name nailed down for it. It's going to resemble like an old, if you think like an old mill, where those double decker buildings, are like the old mills you'd see around towns. That's exactly what it's going to look like. And we're basically going to borrow some of Stone Ridge's name, so we're going to call it Stone Mill Market, is what it's going to be called. So
Ooh, that's
heard it here
smooth.
heard it here first. Yeah, yeah, I'm pretty pumped for it. It's
That's
exciting. I
exciting.
got it's cool because when the rumor got out that we were going to do something, I start having people ask me about this. So the guy that designed the building is actually one of my customers from on the lake here, and as soon as he found out, he called me. He goes, "Ed, you have to let me design this." And I'm like, "Well, let me think about it. I'll get back to you." And then, the dust settled, and I'm like, "Yeah, we're going to do this for sure." So I called him back, and I was like, "Hey, Jesse," I'm like, "All right, let's talk more in detail about this." And the plan he came up with is absolutely phenomenal. It's going to be a gorgeous looking building, and like I said, we just got to work out all the logistics now, getting the formal plans from an architect, and they got to get approved by the state, and so there's gonna be a long process here yet. But I'm picturing next summer we'll be digging, digging and building walls. So yeah,
That's awesome. And they heard it here first from the man himself, so that's awesome. As far as we're kind of coming here to the end, I got a business meeting
yeah,
after this.
oh yeah, go
Any
for it.
as far as any one, I mean, there's been a lot of great things that we touched base on here today, but is there any one specific thing that you would like to say to people out there, so that way, like, if they're going through a tough time or they're an entrepreneur and they're starting some sort of business, and
Stick with it. Yeah,
anything that you could.
yeah, and I know we did ramble a lot, and I hope I stayed on track here today, but
No, we
honestly,
did great. We did fantastic.
it's sticking with it, right? I mean, today, a lot of people don't know my history, and I'm not going to get into it here, but come and talk to me someday. I'll tell you. I mean, I've had every issue you can believe that you've heard of. I've been through, and I tell my son this constantly. I said, don't make some of these mistakes. And when you're my age, you might be retired. I won't be, but stick with it. Don't give up on stuff, because I could have given up many, many times, right? I mean, it is just, you got to fight back the tears, the short time with family, stuff like that. It's tough, but stick with it. And you eventually, you just got to get yourself to the top of the mountain. And then when you get there, and I don't know if you ever totally get there, but it gets easier. You know, respecting other people's opinions. I've always been a huge fan of that. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's right, but if somebody comes to you with something and they're voicing their opinion, and I deal with this customer service wise all the time, right? So the reality of the situation, if somebody's upset and they are coming to you with something that they're upset about, even though you know, maybe they are a little bit off, right? Or, what they're, it's like they didn't understand, so they're upset. But the reality of that situation is they are upset and they are thinking they are right. So let's talk them through. Let's get through this. Blah 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 blah. Let's get ourselves into a good spot, right? And then the biggest thing for me is like learn something every day. Like I say, if you go by a day where you're not learning something, it's a wasted day, right? So I
Right.
still love getting, my old chef that was here when I started, his name was Romy Schneider. He lives down in Florida now, but every once in a while, if I get hung up on something cooking wise, I still call Romy and ask him, right? I always love tapping, respecting older people's opinions. I love it. I embrace it. I love talking to older people, getting their information out of them, because someday that's going to be gone. And that's, I pass on to my, we've kind of developed this thing by me where it's like, what's the pro tip, right? And I always tell everybody now, I'm
The
like,
pro
okay,
tip.
well, yeah, I always say, here's the pro tip of the day, right? It's like, and take this and move forward with it. And it's just, so if you are young embrace the people that have been doing it for a while. It may not always be, I say, come to me with ideas. I love young people too. Bring me your ideas. Really embrace it over here with social media stuff because I'm like, I want your ideas. Sunday morning, I told one of the kids, I was like, he's 20. I said, I got you doing this because I want your ideas. I don't want to be stagnant sitting here looking at what I think is right. I want your ideas because you're 35 years younger than me. I want your ideas so that I know how to be ready for the next generation of people coming in my doors. And what people are watching, and that kind of stuff and looking for. So, but also respect older people's opinion because I always say there was a process how I got to my decision. So if you got a better idea, let's talk about it.
See, that brings a whole new meaning of seasoned veterans.
Yeah.
In your line of work, seasoned veterans.
Seasoned
Then
veterans.
you got your young pups, they're the salty fries, the new potatoes
Yeah.
in the mix. That's awesome.
Exactly. So,
Well, Ed, I wanna thank you for jumping on the show today, and I really
oh,
appreciate
yeah.
you taking the time out of your busy day and, sharing your story with us. I think that's pretty remarkable. I think that we gave the viewers a lot to bite into on this episode, so it's pretty crunchy.
Pretty crunchy. I love it. Like a good bark on
Pretty
barbecue.
crunchy. Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to thank everyone for tuning into the Freeman Focus and stay tuned for next episode. This episode will drop this Thursday, and I hope everyone gets a good earful. This is a good one.
All right. Take care, buddy.
All right, take care, Ed.